Hi, and welcome to my channel, Laura's Library Card. So I am going to start a Kindle Unlimited vlog, reading project, whatever, and I wanted to spice it up a little bit. I wanted to come up with books that I might not normally choose or just not go with the most recent thing that I have heard about. So instead of doing a random number generator kind of situation, I actually asked my husband Ben to take a look at my Kindle Unlimited TBR list that's on Goodreads and to choose a couple titles for me. So he did that and he actually recorded himself. So I am about to watch his video to find out what titles he chose for me, and I'm going to film my reaction to his video because I think he'll probably say a couple things that are funny. But yeah, so I will try to figure out if I can superimpose me onto that video. We'll figure it out. So let's get started.
All right. This is for my beautiful wife, Laura. I'm picking out 3 books from her Kindle Unlimited TBR or Goodreads. So 67 books here, apparently. Just do we go all the way back and add the very first one?
I have not looked at this list in forever.
No, that would be mean. So, sorry, this has got to Puck Me Secretly, just for the pun, has got to be on the list.
Okay.
Wild. Oh, it's a hockey romance though. Boo.
Hockey.
It's fine.
I love a hockey romance.
Zombie apocalypse romance? What the fuck? Sure, why not? Bloody Sunrise.
Right time of year. Oy, oy, oy.
We're going strictly off titles. Because here's the thing, right? I love my wife, but she has such a weird taste in books. That this is just gonna be a whole bunch of weird stuff. So
yeah.
I love my wife, but she's, Ice Planet Barbarians was kind of a wild series. Yes, I get it, Goodreads. You want me to make an account. I'm not going to. Alright, speaking of... Sure. Rescued by her alien mate. That's just a factual statement. Like, that doesn't feel like a good book title. You know what I mean? I don't know. They weren't creative about that at all. They just said, fuck it, we'll run it, I guess. Whatever. There it is. Those are 3 books that Laura's going to have to read off of her Kindle Unlimited TBR.
Okay. Okay, so, wow. Okay, we've got some variety here, so that's nice. We've got, we've got some variety here. We have Puck Me Secretly, which is a hockey romance. Is it a... Let me do a little bit of looking up so I can speak about these intelligently. Yes, and skimming through my Kindle Unlimited list, I can kind of see where my interests have been, because there'll be like a number of things in a row that are all kind of alien romance or monster romance, and then there'll be a whole bunch of hockey romance, and yeah, you can kind of see sort of my history of things. But yes, Puck Me Secretly by Odette Stone looks to be a sports romance, hockey romance. I am interested. It's 400 pages. But I'm excited for it. I love me a good hockey romance. So that's the first book. And then the second book that Ben chose was called Bloody Sunrise by Gwendolyn Harper. This is short. This is 166 pages. And this is a zombie virus outbreak, post-apocalyptic kind of setting, survival kind of romance. And the male character is an ex-Marine with a shadowy past. It's 166 pages, so I think that's a little bit longer than a novella, but we shall see how it turns out. Oh my gosh, this one also, the third choice, Rescued by Her Alien Mate, also says it's 166 pages, so interesting. But this Rescued by Her Alien Mate is by Ava York and star Huntress, and crash landed on alien planet, and the local aliens rescue us, and we fall in love kind of situation. So I love me a good alien romance. I am intrigued with this. This does say in the blurb, we don't understand a word of what the other person is saying. And so I hope it's not forever way too much miscommunication, difficult communication situation, because I want there to be some of that because that's realistic, but also, and I don't want it just to be solved with like oh, we got a laser scan into our eyes and now we understand the whole language. But also, I don't like it when books just take too long to be able to communicate, because I want there to be good communication, because good communication leads to good emotional development, and then I believe it. So I'm a little concerned that this is only 166 pages according to Goodreads. It's not a huge surprise for an alien romance, but I guess we shall find out. So I've got kind of a variety here: zombies, aliens, hockey. I am a tiny bit disappointed that none of the, it seems like from the blurb, all of the books that Ben ended up landing on all seem to be heterosexual couples, when I have a number of not heterosexual couples on my list. So yeah, if this is a success, I don't know. Maybe I'll ask him to pick another batch, or maybe I will use a random number generator or something. But yeah, stay tuned, and I will tune in once I have started the books and I can give you an update. Hi. Okay, so I'm here to tune in because I am 50% of the way through Puck Me Secretly by Odette Stone, and my feelings are all over the place. The first 10 to 15% or so of this book is very dramatic, and it's not a spoiler because it's so far early in the book, and also it's in the blurb. But we have our main female character of Rory. She is on a plane flying from New York to Vancouver, which is where she grew up, because she needs to start a year, now that she's graduated college, doing an internship in her father's business, and she is not happy about this. She's also a super nervous flyer and has had a couple drinks to take the edge off before her flight, and she ends up kind of word vomiting to and over talking and over explaining herself to the guy who's sitting next to her, who is super, super hot. And the plane starts experiencing some turbulence and then is actually in some serious trouble. And then the plane actually crashes. And on the way of the plane taking a nosedive and going down, Rory confesses to the guy who she's sitting next to, named Max, and who she doesn't really know anything about, that she has never had an orgasm from a partner. And he is a big, strong, buff, alpha man kind of guy, and he was like, oh, I could totally, like, he says, it's not something wrong with you, it's something wrong with the partners you've had previously, and I could take care of you in 2 minutes flat. And so she says, okay, well, if we survive this plane crash, I might take you up on that offer. And then the plane actually crashes. And I had not read that very carefully in the blurb. I thought that she was a nervous flyer who thinks that the turbulence means the plane is going to crash kind of situation. Oh, ah, ha, ha, embarrassing what she blurted out in just a couple bumps. But no, the plane crashes. But nobody dies. It's like a miracle that nobody dies. And the airline puts everybody up in a hotel, or gets them medical attention if they need it. And the two of them are in rooms next to each other, and she doesn't want to be alone. And one thing leads to the next, and she does get an orgasm from him. And then when she kind of wakes up, he has disappeared, and she never found out his name, never found out anything about him. And this makes her incredibly, incredibly mad. And turns out that the job that she has to do, the business that her father is in, is that he owns the stadium in Vancouver that the hockey players play in, and he is the owner and general manager of the hockey team. And Max, turns out, has just been recruited to this hockey team. But Max comes with some baggage, because even though he's an extremely excellent and skilled hockey player, he off the ice has been nothing but trouble. He is constantly known for getting in the tabloids and being caught with many women, in the buff, causing problems, causing fights. And he was traded from Minnesota because he got into a really serious fight with another teammate off the ice, and that teammate needed like surgery afterwards. And he basically is lucky that any team has accepted the trade from Minnesota. So that's the premise. And Rory's dad is the GM, and he's in charge, and he totally has wanted her to take over this family business, and he is grooming her to be the next GM. And everyone views that this position she is not at all qualified for, but has been thrust into, is totally a nepotism hire, and it is, and she is not very comfortable with that. But also she's like kind of determined to do the best she possibly can in this year, just so that when she officially declares that this is not for her and it's not what she wants to do, no one can claim that she didn't really give it her all. And so here I am at 50%. And there's just a couple different things. Like this is a very slow burn. There is some tension between Rory and Max, but also this is only a single point of view. We only have Rory's point of view, which is kind of annoying to me at this point in my romance reading career, but it's okay. But it makes it so that I feel that I don't know Max. I don't feel like I get a ton of personality from him. The little bit of conversation and interactions that we've had between Max and Rory, where she is judging his character, they don't seem to fully mesh with his bad boy image, or it just seems like it's very discrepant from that bad boy image and that quick, hot-tempered fighter kind of guy. And so it just feels a little odd to me in the setup, and the whole fight surrounding what the fight was about that got him kicked off of the Minnesota team is just a big, huge secret. But obviously, Rory, as his technical boss, knows that there could be nothing between the two of them. And he basically had said, "Oh, I really need to focus on my career right now." And she took that as a brush off that he was not actually interested in her. So here we are at 50%, and they're not together, and there is a little sort of simmering tension between the two of them, but they both are really fighting that a lot. And it's not like a sexy banter kind of way. It really feels like, I don't know, it just doesn't feel like they should really like be together to some extent. And there's also all this whole element of the things that she is being asked to do, like travel with them to all of their games and stuff, just seems not 100%. I mean, I don't know anything about sports, so maybe I'm totally wrong, but it just doesn't seem like the jobs that her dad is assigning her to do really have anything to do with what this role is, or her potential role in being a GM. So there's just moments and situations where she's involved in with the team and what's going on, and I'm like, yeah, but would you really be here? Like, is this authentic? And there is also there are two different people who are involved with the business, involved with the hockey team, who are very antagonistic toward Rory and toward Max, or some combination thereof. And they just feel like villain, like twirling their mustaches kind of situation. There is this social media Twitter account that pops up not long after Rory has joined this business, this team. And it is like basically a Rory hate Twitter profile. And so it's just like, it's tweeting about this person and how she stinks at her job, and how it's just a nepotism hire, and how she's sleeping her way through the team, and how none of the players like her. And it feels like if it doesn't turn out to be one of these two mustache twirling villains, I will be absolutely flabbergasted. But I don't know. I don't feel like the romance is very prevalent here, and I I'm intrigued. I'm enjoying it. I want to keep reading. I'm just kind of a little surprised because I don't know. I sort of felt like the title led me to believe that this was going to be a like just benefits, we have to keep this secret kind of a situation for a long time, and it doesn't seem like that's where it's going to be going. So I am intrigued, and I will tune back in probably at the end with my final thoughts and feelings, but I am kind of surprised as to the first half of this book. So yeah, I will tune back in later. Hi. Okay, so I have finished Puck Me Secretly, and I'm here to give my final interpretation. I finished it just a little bit ago, so I haven't fully gotten my thoughts in order, but I think I'm going to land on a very middling, it was good kind of book. I think it was sort of like a 2.75-ish rating for me personally. And I think that that is partly because I felt that the second half of the book was continued to be very dramatic. There's a lot of dramatic plot in the whole book. And I think that this really struggled, or the weakest parts were both characterization and what I'm going to call tone. And I think that for the characters, it was partly because so many of the side characters really just functioned to be in the book to serve the plot. How did they cause a problem that then Rory had to solve, or that caused a problem that then Max, the male love interest, had to weather the storm or something. And so, her parents were loving but distant, and the mom was just this socialite who was in it for the galas and didn't care about hockey, and her dad was the hard-headed businessman who had to rule and be in control of everything. And they just really functioned to be there to cause problems when like the villains, who were very mustache twirly, as I said earlier, came along and caused problems. And so I felt like the secondary characters generally kind of were caricatures of certain stereotypes, and that was kind of obnoxious. But I will say that, I could have been okay with that overall because they're just the side characters, but I also felt that there was characterization problems with our male love interest of Max, because this is a book that is only a single point of view. We only have Rory's point of view, but Max is portrayed at the start as this, playboy, fighter, quick-tempered, bad boy kind of image, and yet we never really get to see any of that on page. The entire time he is on page here throughout this book, yes, he does get angry once or twice, but that's always reasonable, and he does get in one or two fights, but that is never unprovoked or unreasonable for him to be fighting. And for the most part, he just comes across as very compassionate and considerate and thoughtful, and even at a point where he participates in a photo shoot where he's very scantily clad because it's going to go on a calendar spread for a charity thing, like he doesn't want to do it. He's kind of shy or vulnerable. And so it felt that the characterization we got, that we were told as to who this person was not actually who that person really seemed to be. And Rory struggled throughout this book with communicating with Max, and struggled to kind of interpret his feelings and her judgments on what his thoughts were on her or on their relationship were kind of all over the place. And I felt that that was kind of realistic, but also I think that Max could have been drawn better in a way to make it more clear to us, the reader, even if it wasn't clear to Rory, that he actually was into her, because I didn't really feel that that was the case. And that kind of leads into the tone issues, because I felt that, and I think part of this is because I did listen to this on audiobook, and I didn't think the narrator did an amazing job. But, in the second half or towards the end, there's a whole bunch of action that's happening, and there's a whole bunch of drama that's going on with Max, and then there's drama that's going on with her family, and then there's drama that's going on with the hockey team, and it felt that there was very minimal tension in the narrator's voice. And so I was not pulled along. And I don't know if that is because of the writing, which felt as if we didn't get to see. Rory was like, my head was spinning because all of these things were happening. And I said, okay, well, what emotions are you feeling? And why do I not feel the tension? Why do I not feel, anguish or anger or intensity here. I just was struggling with that. And I think that that also led to a lack of feelings when the bad guy tries to do bad guy stuff. And I was just kind of like, yeah, I saw this coming. And also, I felt that this tone issue kind of perfectly dovetails with the characterization issue because the few sex scenes that were in the book felt generally too intense and out of character for both of our main characters. Like the I don't know. There's like neither of them really even like swear that much or seem to be. I don't know. It just the sex scenes came along and it was just all dirty talk and primal and feral, and I was just it just didn't feel like it fit the tone of the rest of the book. And I was thinking, why do we have such a compassionate and caring and tender and sweet main male character who then, as soon as he's naked, just turns into this total dom alpha, even though that's how he's portrayed off page. I don't know. I felt that there was sometimes sort of a mismatch throughout the book where it was sort of inconsistent. And so, yeah, for me, I felt that there was a lot of predictability in the plot, and because of the, oh, that person is a bad guy, like, guess what? Turned out to be a bad guy, the end. I just kind of struggled with super, super enjoying it. Read easily, read quickly, not a bad book, just not amazing. Definitely trigger warnings for sexual assaults, rape, and it doesn't graphically happen on page, but there is sort of relatively explicit discussion of an event on page, even though the event doesn't happen on page. So just a heads up. And yeah, I would potentially read more by this author, give them another shot. But for me, this Puck Me Secretly was just kind of good, but not amazing. So I will tune back in when I have read a chunk. I started, and I'm literally on page like 4 of the Alien Mate one. So I will probably tune back in later with an update for the Alien romance. So stay tuned. Hi. Okay, so I am tuning in because I have finished Rescued by Her Alien Mate. And yes, I did not give you a halfway midpoint update because this was reading really fast. And right around the halfway point, I didn't feel like I had a ton to say. Overall, this is just like very solid. This is very solid. I don't know how else to put it. It has a lot of the tropes you would expect for a alien romance where the main female character has been abducted and finds her soulmate, amongst the aliens. So honestly, for like a good chunk of this book, the first 3/4 of the book, I would say, has a very familiar plot point in that these alien women have been abducted and they're being kept in cages, and the bad guy aliens want to enslave them / do nefarious things, bad purposes. The ship crashes to the planet. The locals are the ones who find them. The leader of the locals is the one who helps find them, and he has an instant connection with our main female character, Sophia. And his eyes even change color, and he can tell immediately that she is his mate. And they go back to the city to the rest of the group, but they can't communicate. So I felt like Ice Planet Barbarians kind of did it a little bit better. But yeah, overall, this was perfectly fine. I felt like we didn't get a ton of interaction of our main 2 characters, Dojak, it's hard to pronounce his name, Dojak and Sophia. I felt like I wanted a little bit more interaction between the 2 of them. Yes, they have this like soulmate mated bonding whatever between the 2 of them, and I'm all for that causing lusty feelings between them, but we really don't get to see almost any interaction of getting to know you on page. They do spend a good chunk of this book not being able to communicate very well. She can understand him, but he can't understand her until they resolve that. And even after they resolve that, there's not a ton of talking. So yeah, I think that this is perfectly fine, but not amazing. I didn't believe in the I love yous because I didn't feel like these 2 characters had really like connected, and they were just totally banking on a trauma response to the action that had happened in the plot, and this bond. So that's fine. But yeah, I can tell this is the start of a series, and I don't know. I thought it was perfectly fine. It honestly wasn't like alien enough, and it really kind of felt like this author wrote a sort of cowboy kind of romance and then was like, oh, what would be cool if this was another planet, and just kind of like control F searched men and replaced it with like lizards. I don't know. It was not alien enough for my personal preferences, and there was not even any discussions halfway through of like, oh, this is a culture clash situation. So I don't know. I felt like there is a sort of a bad guy in this book, and this was a very obvious character who was a bad guy from page 2, or from the first time we met this person, and then yeah, that bore out to be true. So I don't know. To me, this was just like okay, not amazing, um, solid, but like I said, not amazing. Very like honestly, like I would give it like a 2.5, which is an average rating, not a low rating, as many people would say. 2.5 to 3, somewhere right in there. I don't know that I would necessarily want to continue in this series over any other Alien series, just because this has not presented something that is super amazing compared to anything else I've ever read before. So yeah, that one was kind of a bummer, but also just like tried and true. So yeah, I will probably give you 2 updates with the whole zombie book. I have not started it yet, but I think it's a little bit longer than this one. So stay tuned for my thoughts on this survival romance, the zombie book. So see you in a minute. Okay, I am tuning in because I am 50% of the way into Bloody Sunrise, I think is the name of the title, by Gwendolyn something. I'm sorry. I've been reading this on ebook, so I've not been able to like see the cover. This is the third book that Ben chose for the Kindle Unlimited vlog, and interestingly, this book also starts with a crash. This starts with a plane crash. The first book started with a plane crash. The second book started with a spaceship crash. This book starts with a plane crash. I don't know how that happened. But yeah, so this is a post-apocalyptic zombie survival romance. It's the first in a series, and I just looked it up, and it looks like the main 2 characters in this series, or in this book, it's like a trilogy. It follows the 2 of them. But yeah, so this is the start of a zombie outbreak, apocalyptic kind of book. Our main female character is Caitlin, and the whole book so far is from her perspective, her point of view. And like I said, at the start of the book, she bids her friend goodbye. They go and get on different flights, and they are flying from LaGuardia to Atlanta. And she's making a connecting flight, and only a few minutes after they've taken off from Atlanta, the plane goes down, giant plane crash. Caitlin is the only survivor. Before boarding any of the flights, there was a newspaper article that was pointed out, headlines that indicated that some mental health patients had managed to escape a hospital and were disgruntled and attacking people. Turns out to be like a government cover up, because they're zombies, and they were actually people who were being experimented on or something. But yeah, so basically she wakes up from the plane crash, is the only person who's a survivor, manages to stumble her way with some broken ribs and a sprained ankle to a local gas station, where she sees a zombie is eating the cashier, and she manages to hide. And then so this is certainly this book is depressing and scary and a bit gory here at the start, and the bulk of it so far, the first, so that all is like maybe the first 25%, and then from 25% to where we are now, Caitlin has met up kind of sporadically, spontaneously on the road with this guy from Texas with a little bit of a southern drawl who calls her darling, and that is Jack Booker, and the 2 of them are full of snappy banter, but get along really pretty well, and are kind of relying on each other for help in these troubled times. They're traveling together, and they have to watch out for zombies, especially since zombies like to come together in herds and find people. And So yeah, the book is good. I think the writing is quite good. It was better than I was expecting. I don't know what I was expecting, but the writing is good. It is engaging. I am interested. I'm engaged. I like both of our main characters, of Jack and Caitlin. I am intrigued with the premise. Yes, there are some gory and scary moments, but they are also balanced out, I think, well by some connecting moments and quieter moments between our main characters. And yeah, right at this exact point at 50%, the two have sort of found refuge with a family, but Caitlin is getting real bad vibes from this family in the cabin in the woods. So I'm thinking that that's not going to go well. But I don't know that this is really going to be a sort of standalone book because it seems like it's part of a trilogy and it has a continuation of these two characters' story. I don't know anything about it. I was very careful to not read very much of the blurb, but I did spot Caitlin and Jack in the next two books, like just in the blurb as I was like skimming quickly. So I don't know for sure where this book is going to end. It seems like it's reading really fast and it's pretty short, so it wouldn't surprise me if it kind of ends on a cliffhanger and you basically have to continue the trilogy. And so far, I'm liking it well enough that I might just do that. So I will tune in at the end with my final thoughts on this book, and that probably will conclude the whole vlog because those are the three titles that Ben chose out for me. So I'll let you know how I feel at the end. Hi, hello. I have just finished Bloody Sunrise by Gwendolyn Harper. And by just finished, I mean like 2 minutes ago, just finished. Haven't even gotten all my thoughts in order. And my number one frustration is that this book ends on a cliffhanger. This book ends on a cliffhanger. And I'm gonna have to pick it up. I'm gonna have to pick it up because it is a high stakes cliffhanger moment. Okay, so yeah. Overall, my thoughts on Bloody Sunrise was that it was pretty enjoyable as these things go. I don't believe that I have ever read anything quite like this. I would say this is sort of a dark romance in that it is a survival romance because it's like the end of the world and our characters are all trying to just survive. But I would also say it's a dark romance because it is the end of the world because there's been a zombie apocalypse and the zombies are all trying to, eat and attack and kill our main characters who have not yet succumbed to the virus and I assume will not succumb by the end of this trilogy or else I will be very upset. I thought the writing was good. I felt like it read really quickly and easily and was well done. I was not finding things that were jarring or obnoxious. I liked the writing. I liked our main characters. I felt like both of them were very well sketched. Yes, we don't know a ton about them, about their likes and their interests and their hobbies, but also in a post-apocalyptic situation, does it matter if we know that she used to knit? Like, not really. Not unless that becomes relevant. But yeah, there is a sort of event from they run into a person and it's like not a huge surprise who that person is. So I felt like that was like a little bit cheesy, but for the most part, I'm fine with it. And yeah, overall, I thought the writing was good. I thought the characterization was good. I thought the romance was pretty believable and was endearing and nice, and I liked the sex scenes. I liked the intimacy that was formed between Caitlin and Booker. I believed in it. I believed in each of them as like people and as survivors. So I felt like Bloody Sunrise was a very good read, and I definitely want to continue reading in this series because I have to know what happens next. So let's recap what I have read for this Kindle Unlimited vlog. The first book that I read was, what was the first book that I read? The first book that I read was Puck Me Secretly by Odette Stone. This was a hockey romance, and it was like fine. It was good. I honestly, even at this exact second, am struggling to remember very much about it. I felt like it was just very like middle of the road. Oh, there were some like dynamics in that book that I didn't super care for because the main female character was like sort of indirectly the main male character's boss, but like in a way that was not like boss employee, but like I don't know, it just felt like kind of like a contrived thing to put her close to him, like in a in a literal physical location kind of way. But yeah, and then yeah, I felt like that book was pretty good until towards the end when some decisions were made that were just really convenient. I'll just kind of leave it at that. There were some decisions that were made that were just really convenient for plot purposes, and it became a little eye rolling. So I felt like Puck Me Secretly was just, pretty, pretty middle of the road. I like 3 stars, like nothing to write home about. The second book that I finished was Rescued by Her Alien Mate by Ava York, and this is an alien book, and we have an abduction and a sort of fated mates situation, and a whole bunch of miscommunication, but ultimately they end up, figuring out how to communicate to each other, and their whole secret magical bond prevails, even though they have sex before they can even communicate. And this one I felt like was just like a pretty standard like alien romance. Like we had an abduction, we had by bad guy aliens, and we had locals who couldn't communicate, but like they were so drawn to each other. I felt like the writing was like not very amazing for my personal preferences. I felt like I just felt like Ice Planet Barbarians, for example, as one example, did it better. And it kind of felt a little bit like this author was 2/3 of the way through the book, or had written a whole book and was like, this is kind of bland. Let's just kind of tweak some things and make them alien. And it just wasn't like alien enough, and so it was fine. It was just like a 3-star kind of middle of the road. If you're looking for a tried and true alien series and you're looking for something, this one was perfectly fine, and it is the start of a series, so I would potentially read more by this author and potentially consider continuing in this series, but it wasn't like amazing for me. And then the last book that I read for this Kindle Unlimited vlog was Bloody Sunrise, as I just finished updating you, and I thought was the best of the bunch. I'm gonna give this like a solid 4 to 4.5 stars. I don't think it was a perfect book, and it was still a little shorter than I would have preferred. Goodreads was listing this at 166, but I think that I saw on Amazon that it's actually a little bit longer than that. I don't know where it's coming up with that number, but I felt like it was a little bit longer than that. I liked the writing. I felt like the writing was a step above what I had read for either the other two, but especially Rescued by Her Alien Mate. And I definitely want to continue reading in this zombie apocalypse series because it was good, and I am invested in our characters and I want to know what happens to them. But it definitely does end in a cliffhanger, so you should know that. One thing I thought was kind of amusing when I started this book is that I realized that all 3 of these books start with a crash. Both Bloody Sunrise and Puck Me Secretly start with a plane crash, and a Rescued by Her Alien Mate starts with a spaceship crash. So I'm like, I'm not sure exactly how Ben managed to finagle that through line, but it was there. So yeah, this was good. I'm glad that I do regularly use my Kindle Unlimited subscription, and I'm happy that I have it. And I think that when I find a number of good books, that encourages me to continue maintaining that subscription service. And so I felt like this was not a total loss, and if anything, it was a good thing that I did this vlog because I found a book and a book series that I'm super interested in continuing. So let me know if you have read any of these books before, or any of these authors before. I believe these authors are all 3 totally new for me, and let me know if you have any recommendations for me going forward in the future. Maybe a more specifically themed Kindle Unlimited vlog. I would love that kind of a suggestion. So let me know what you think, and thanks so much for watching. See you next time. Bye.